Yoga Vasishtha Sara, Chapter 1, Part number 5. Verse number 19. He is a happy man whose mind is inwardly cool and free from attachment and hatred, and who looks upon this world like a mere spectator. The problem is that for most of us, we never really look inwardly. We usually only focus on outside objects and never to the space over here inwardly which contains them. So, what does it mean to look inwardly? For that, I will use a little exercise from Douglas Harding, an Advaita teacher that I met in my younger years from the UK. And he would use the finger pointing exercise. I suggest you do it yourself at home if you feel like it. But you don't have to if you don't feel like it, of course. So, pointing the finger to yourself, you can actually ask yourself the question, what is it that this finger points at? Now, when you look like that, don't look at your finger, but look at that to which this finger points to. And when you do that, ask yourself the question, is there really a face here? Can you really see a face here? Do you see really a nose, a mouth, two eyes, two ears? Or is this finger just pointing at vast, boundless, colorless space in which this whole room, this whole universe even, can appear in? And in which also, this space, in which thoughts and feelings and bodily sensations also appear in. When you recognize that simple fact and start living from that space vantage point, your life becomes more, as this verse states, cool and free from attachment and hatred, and you look upon this world at that time like a mere spectator. Why don't we do this more often? Why are we not aware of that simple fact? Well, the problem is that from childhood on we learn to look at the world from this body-mind, ego point of view. And yes, even these ego roles that we play all day long, they are being perceived within this same space of awareness which we are. Just like the body is being perceived in this space of awareness, and just like our feelings and our thoughts are being perceived within that same space. But we just jump into these ego roles and think that's what we are. And we try to defend this ego towards the world. And we try to make this thing, this ego, happy. And we are anxious to whatever may happen that may threaten this ego, this body-mind. We no longer see the world as a spectator, as is suggested by this verse, but we get entangled with its games. We no longer live from this space of awareness. So reflect about these things for a moment, and when you see yourself jumping into ego roles, remember pointing this finger to this empty space, boundless space of awareness which you are, and live the situation from that vantage point. And then you may find yourself to be, like the verse says, a happy man or woman whose mind is inwardly cool and free from attachment and hatred. He who has understood well how to abandon all ideas of acceptance and rejection, and who has realized consciousness which is within the innermost heart, his or her life is illustrious. Our thinking minds is constantly in the business of judging all the time, rejecting what threatens this ego, which we think we are, and wishing for that which is not present, but we think will bring happiness. Like, for example, rejecting the present feeling of fear or boredom, and wishing for happier times, holidays, sunny days. When we know how to contact our inner peace, consciousness, those constant accepting and rejecting actions are seen for what they are. One has to say, the movie keeps playing, and it is in the nature of our thinking mind to keep projecting thoughts and images. But somehow the secondary thoughts of judging everything as good and bad, as desirable or non-desirable, these little subtitles that we put when any thoughts comes up, these subtitles tend to become fewer. And that gives a chance for the presence of awareness to shine through more often, more frequently, because we don't constantly add those subtitles to anything that happens or any thought that occurs. So in a few moments, see how your thinking mind constantly adds subtitles to anything happening. See how you're constantly judging, rejecting, wishing. And then see how this constant noise somehow hides the space of awareness. It fills any gaps that might otherwise be possible to open up, where this shining light, this space of awareness can shine through. Verse number 21. On the dissolution of the body, the ether limited by the heart, alone ceases to exist. People lament needlessly that the self is extinct. In this case, dissolution not necessarily means the death of the body. Dissolution of the body here may just signify what happens when you realize this space of awareness which you are. Because when you realize that space, you discover how wide, how transparent, how empty and how vast that space that you are really is. And how constricted the usual sense of identify with a 70-kilogram body of flesh and bones, how constricted that usually is. And this realization then feels like this heavy body is being solved. That's what they mean by the dissolution of the body. And when this false identification with such a body-mind is exchanged to this space of awareness, the sense of being limited fades away, dissolves. However, this verse can also be read as meaning the death of the body. A metaphor often used is that of a turbulence or a whirlpool in a river. You have a river flowing and there's whirlpools. This whole situation is made out of water anyway. It's the same way everything is observed, dreams, objects, they're all made out of consciousness. Just as all images on a screen are just screen illuminated by lights and shadows. So the whirlpool just loses its grip when we lose our body, and may reassemble in another whirlpool a little bit later. The thing is that if you identify with water, with this space of awareness which this finger points to, there is no fear of death. However, when you identify with the whirlpool, then you have everything to lose, because then when the body parts, it looks like everything is gone. So in this verse, we lament needlessly that our whirlpool ceases to exist. However, identifying with the water, identifying with consciousness, there is no such fear left. So during the next few moments, feel your body-mind as a moving whirlpool in a river, with thoughts circulating, bodily sensations appearing and disappearing, and then shift your attention to that which is aware of it, that which doesn't move, the water. Verse number 22. When porcelain pots and cups are broken, the space within them becomes unlimited. So also, when bodies cease to exist, the eternal self remains, eternal and unattached. The pot in this case here is similar to the metaphor we gave during the previous verse of the whirlpool. And our problem is that we do identify with the pot, with the body, with the ego roles that it plays. What we are is the space in which this body, in which these thoughts, in which even this world appears. Taking ourselves for the limited is what causes all sufferings and misery. Taking ourselves for consciousness, aware space, we find ourselves limitless, eternally in the now, and unattached to objects, just as this verse says. So, during the last few moments, try to meditate about the following. First, take yourself as this body. Makes it heavy, 60, 70 or 80 kilograms heavy, and feel it has boundaries. And then, in the next few moments, take yourself as that in which this heavy body appears, and feel that in that case there are no boundaries. There is just thin air, or even less than that. Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful day.